This was a big epiphany for me. They say write what you know, right? No, don't do that. What I know is boring to me. I don't want to write what I know because I already know it. But he said, write what you want to know.
That's Joe Zimmerman, a comedian whose resume has grown to include The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon, Conan, and his own Comedy Central half hour. His special cult classic was directed by Nate Bargatze, and the Comedy Bureau called it, quote, one of the best specials of the year. In this conversation, Joe shares what it really takes to build a creative career over time while trusting the slow process and still staying playful.
And I'd attended the inspirational speakers at
Like
my
who?
college. This guy that was very inspirational.
This is the hilarious Joe Zimmerman. Let's imagine that you are sitting on an airplane and there's this really chitty chatty person sitting next to you, and they look over to you casually and they say, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you how do you choose to respond to that?
Well, first of all, that's my nightmare. Absolute nightmare on an airplane. I want to open with, I just flew cross country. I had been sitting next to a talkative toddler on one flight, and we did drawings together, and then a talkative businessman
Mm.
who's like, headed home. What do you do? Boom, an hour with Jim, 2 hours with toddler. So it's a 6 hour flight. I was like, oh, I could use some quiet time. No, hopefully no Heather parodies. You know what I'm saying? Asking what
Yeah.
I do. I sat down. You won't believe this. I sat down to this beautiful, age appropriate woman. And I
Hmm.
was like, this is good news because there is no way she says a word to me. And I was correct. We went the whole flight in silence. It was a beautiful thing. So, what do I do? Oh, but let's say pleasant, chatty Heather sitting next to me, airplane. What do you do for a living? Um, I used to lie and say accounts payable because I didn't I didn't want to say you're a comedian because then people are like, oh, say something funny. But now I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable with myself. I'm comfortable in my skin. So I'll say, oh, I'm a comedian. And now I'm comfortable with whatever they, oh, say something funny or how'd you get into that? Now I'm comfortable. So I just say I just say I'm a comedian. And then if they're like, oh, are you funny? I'm like, no, I'm terrible. Don't watch. It's horrible. Don't even worry about it. But now I'm honest. I did say accounts payable for a while because I have a friend named Ryan who works in accounts payable, and he said nobody has ever asked him one follow-up question to that job.
Shout out to Ryan.
Yeah.
When did you get comfortable saying I'm a comedian?
I would say I was comfortable saying I was a comedian way too soon, like 1 month into doing comedy.
Really?
Before you're really a comedian, I'm like, yeah, I'm a comedian. And then I went through a phase of about 10 years where I didn't want to say I was a comedian. And then now I feel like maybe as of around 2021, maybe post quarantine, I was like, you know what? I can answer. I'm good. I'm good with this. I've been a comedian long enough and I got all the answers. So I would say post 2021, I've been comfortable just saying I'm a comedian.
You started after college or right around college, right?
Yeah, right. Like a month after I finished college. I've never used my college degree once on my resume. It's pretty frustrating. English degree, Davidson College,
What were you wanting to do?
Division 1 athlete. I can't believe you asked, but I was a Division 1 athlete. Thank you for asking. 4 years, scholar athlete. Nobody ever asks, but you asked.
I heard that you were really good at athletics, like basketball, golf, like you can just like anything you can kind of go out there and do a pretty stinking good job at it.
Thank you. Yeah, it seems like it'll be basketball, but it is golf. It is just golf. Uh,
You know I live in Augusta, right?
I knew you were in Georgia. I didn't realize you were Augusta.
Yeah, and you've played on this golf course, right?
I have, attended the Masters. Uh, I have not played Augusta National myself, but I've attended a couple of rounds of the Masters, time of my life.
When did you think to yourself, "You know what? I'm funny enough that I'm willing to risk whatever career I had in my mind to go all in on this."
Um, I would say, whew, 1.5 years into doing.
You're gonna be sweating by the time this interview's over, I promise you.
This is a worst case scenario middle seat on the flight. You give off a much better vibe than the 50-year-old businessman that asks me if I'm headed home, and I appreciate that. I'm not headed home. I'm headed to do business. We're here to do business. Um, I so early on, you just every comedian, believe it or not, some people don't seem to believe it. Every comedian just does an open mic to get started, and then you
Mhm.
do more open mics, and then through people you meet at open mics, you start to do these little local shows and MC gigs. It's very local starting out. And about a year and a half in to doing that sort of thing after college, I was working at a cool Habitat for Humanity restore job in Charlotte, North Carolina, helping with this coffee shop concept in the restore because I was very into coffee as well. And I worked for 2 years, I guess 2 full years with a real job for Habitat for Humanity, and then doing stand up locally at night. And after 2 years, 2 full years, I was kind of like, well, you got to take the risk. You got to jump off the diving board. I've heard this. I've read about this. You got to risk stuff, and you got to have more time to travel places. So I had saved up just enough money. I had a car, where you can drive all over the country to do these little gigs. Um, and so 2 years, I took a risk. I just went full stand up, and that was kind of the time when everybody's pretty skeptical if you tell people about it. It's not like people were like, "Yeah, this is the time. You're gonna make it." It's not like my parents were like, "Yep, you've earned it," after 2 years of doing open mics. Um, so there were not a lot of. It's not like there were a lot of believers. There was a lot of people being like, "Yeah, it's good to do stuff. I guess try it." And so I found some friends in Asheville, about 20 miles outside of Asheville, North Carolina. I lived in their garage. I found some good rent living in their garage. So my bills were close to zero, and I I basically just ate through my savings for the next 18 months driving all over the Midwest, performing in these like karaoke type bars where you sort of cut your chops after you do the open mics. Then you do these like electric cowboys and motors and like biker gigs where they're like, don't say anything about Hell's Angels because that's the rival gig. Just a heads up. All right, have fun out there. And then it's just like 47 um, bikers from a bicycle gang, and you're like, I haven't ridden motorcycles, but if you want me to talk about bears, I have some bear jokes.
How
So
old are you at this point?
jumping off the cliff into comedy about 25 ish, 26 ish.
I'm gonna ask you about that because I'm 39, I'm about to turn 40, and I feel like for the first time in my life, like, I'm actually getting into my body and feeling like Heather, and I'm, like, confident and showing my quirks for the first time, and I'm so amazed by people who, at the age of, like, 20, 25, were able to kinda, like, say, "Screw the system, I'm confident in this, I really believe that this is something that I can do." 'Cause that's not something that I had back then, and I'm curious, like, where that came from. Was there, like, an innate thing? Was it, like,
Uncle Johnny who was encouraging you? Like, where did that confidence come from that early of an age?
Um, I think it was like blind stupidity more, like delusion. No, I appreciate first of all, I appreciate what we're saying. I do feel like I'm more comfortable in my skin as of the last several years. I think that at 25, 26, I it was more like I'd heard, I'd read all the inspirational stories and I'd been attended the inspirational speakers at
Like
my
who?
college. This guy that was very inspirational, he was so inspirational. This guy was like, "You can do anything. You can do anything. Wait, you only live one life. What are you gonna do that thing when you just have one life?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." And then this other guy was like, this other inspirational speaker was like, "You guys have to write your own obituary." We were like, "All right." And we wrote our own obituaries, and it was terrifying as a 21-year-old to write your own obituary. It's like, I don't know, survived by my dog, I hope. Uh, I'm like, what do I want my legacy to be? So so I think inspirational speakers and reading books at Barnes and Noble, I was like, you got to follow your dream, you got to follow your passion. I'm old. I'm 25 years old. I'm so old at this point. I gotta do this. Uh,
Oh my god, I'm hurting.
so I
Oh,
think by that point, I think you're like, well, Dave Chappelle was in he was in Robin Hood Men in Tights when he was 19 years old. Look at me, I'm an old man. I'm living in Hendersonville, North Carolina. I got to make this happen. Uh, so I would say it was sort of just like following your dreams without a lot of. But the smart thing I did was I saved enough money for a year to not have a day job, and so by the end of a year of dwindling savings, that point I had started to pick up enough real road gigs after about 18 months where I started to tread water after 18 months. But I think it's important to remember when you take a risk, there is there's a reason it's a risk. There might be some pain involved. And so it was a lot of 10-hour drives, um, a lot of neutral to negative feedback from certain audiences. But along the way you meet people. I think Maria Bamford was one of the first really successful comedians I met, and she was very um, kind to me and very helpful, and even offered to have me come along on some gigs. So you get all these little encouraging things along the way. But it is, you take a risk. I I definitely even struggled a little bit with like health from just being, driving for these 12-hour drives. I remember I remember getting shingles when I was 27 and the doctor was like, you're a little young to get shingles." And it just had to do with I think it just had to do with, these 12-hour drives and being exhausted.
yeah. You know what is funny is, like, listening to you, I told you before we hit record, like, I hate saying this because it makes me sound like an old prude, but it's just true. It's just true. I really struggle, like, laughing at normal things that most people laugh at, but with you, you're so funny to me, and I don't know what I was asking, like, what is it about, like, his comedy that's really funny? And I think whenever I'm really connected to, like, a performer, whether it's a comedian or an actor or even a speaker, it's somebody who's really connected to their body and really comfortable with, like, the way that they show up in this world, and they're really embodied is the only word that I can think of. And I was curious with you, like, yeah, you're if you wrote down the words that you say on paper, it's funny, but the way that you move through the world, which I think is just really a comfort level with your own skin is really cool. And not everybody listening to this show, I'd say very few people listening to this show are like aspiring comedians, but one of the ways that we can connect with people is to be 100% like in ourselves and comfortable with the way that we show up and not trying to present and be one way. And it's easier said than done. Like, I think we can all shake our heads and be like, yeah, that's what we should do. But actually doing it is, there's a lot of work that goes with that. Because first, for Joe to show up as Joe, he has to be cool with Joe. I'm curious, like with you, is that ever an issue with you having to get comfortable with the way that you show up on stage? And if so, like, how did you move through that?
Can you repeat the question from the beginning? I wasn't paying any attention. You got s
I've never had anyone say that to me before.
No, I love it. I love sincerity. I feel like I'm, like, on the other side of the coin of sincerity. I feel like I wanted to be a poet, and then every time I tried to write something sincere, I just ended up making a dumb joke, and I feel like comedians are sort of on the just, like, on the same coin, but the other side of, like, sincere people.
That's why I it's so weird because, like, I'm really drawn to comedians, but for some reason, every time I talk to a comedian, they're like, "I have no idea what you're saying." It's the weirdest thing.
No,
Okay, here's a good
you're
question for
speaking my no, you're speaking my language. You're speaking my language. You're asking when, you asked when was my first girlfriend? What did you ask?
you. When did you get cool with you? Like you're a quirky dude. You show up different in this world than most people, and before you knew you were a comedian, before you had the success, before you were able to travel, before you were able to be in front of thousands of people and make them laugh and have the shows and all the validation, like pre-Joe, like before all of that, like, how did you get comfortable enough with, like, "You know what? This is the way that I show up in the world. I think I'm funny. I have something worth giving." And even though the external validation had not been there yet that you have now, you had to internally accept that first. And I think that's the hard part for any communicator.
Yeah, as far as being comfortable in being funny and showing up as myself and figuring out, "Oh, this is what I like to this is the way I like to be in the world," a little silly. I think I did arrive at it through feelings of so I think it involves trying really hard at things. For instance, my dream was for a while to sincerely be a professional golfer, and I tried very hard. I practiced all the time. And I think sort of seeing that, going all the way as hard as I could at that, and then seeing sort of it come up short, uh, you sort of explore like, "Oh, okay, I've tried my hardest at this thing. Um, it wasn't a failure, but it kind of felt like a failure as a 21-year-old. And so then you start exploring, well, what's important to me? And I think during that time I was, having the most fun times, just having making your friends laugh, having fun with your friends, which goes back to friendship. Um, and laughter, it evolved. Well, actually, we don't know why it evolved. There's a few theories, but one of the theories is to indicate friendship because
Mm.
you're like, oh, somebody says a joke, and you want to be friends. You're like, that's a good one, Or if it's people laugh at their boss a lot because they're like trying to be on the good side of their boss. But so there's two possibilities. Friendship. Also, they think it might have indicated safety, like, oh, the storm blew over. That was a close one, and then they giggle. Um, but I was just having fun with my friends, laughing doing little jokes, and I think it happened senior year. Uh, there was an English class where I could not keep up with the reading requirements, but I would come in, I would do a little joke or two for class participation about like the one paragraph I had read. And I'm telling you, the class was really on board. They were like, they were coming back. They were coming back for more. Teacher was very happy with my participation. And so I kind of felt that it was this little shortcut to participating in the world when you're not keeping up with other things. Um, and then this guy at a fraternity party, and I always felt like an outsider at fraternity parties. I always felt like, a nerd or whatever. But this frat brother, classic fraternity brother, uh, he was like, Joe Zimmerman, you're the reason I get up at 8 a.m. in the morning to go to British colloquium. And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, you're so funny. So that I feel like little things like that, I got confidence from friends and people telling me I was funny. And so really external validation is where I got.
You know, there's like this whole train of thought with I just did a video on this yesterday about I think it was Steve Martin who said, "Be so good that they can't ignore you."
Mhm.
Right? And
Yeah.
so there's kinda 2 trains of thought when it comes to the entertainment space or wanting to build any kind of brand where it's just like freaking work on the craft, and there's this other part that's like, you can be so good and you still won't get anywhere unless you learn, like, networking and the connections and all of that, and, um, where you've been able to take your career is so cool, and I know there's so much talent there, and I'm curious your perception, like, focusing on talent, has that been the most important part to building your career? Or was there ever a point where it, like, kinda, shifted to where you thinking like, "Yo, I need to learn the networking stuff and become more of an, like, an entrepreneur?"
Yeah. First of all, love Steve Martin. Um, love his old albums. Great banjo player. Started off as a magician. I mean, he's been an entertainer since he was 10 years old. Uh, and now he's written a novel. Um, big Steve Martin fan. Also, yeah. Also, I think he was doing arenas when he was like 27, so it's also easy for him to say. It's easier for him to say, like, just be amazing like me. Just do arenas when you're 27. I think that's true. Be so good that they can't ignore you. Yes, and what you're saying, I don't normally do improv, but yes, and is an improv thing. To yes, and what you're saying, I think most of the quote unquote things I've gotten are big opportunities, big breaks, usually started out, usually can tie back to something that happened 3 or 4 years earlier.
Hmm.
So I think with stand up, there are people, you know, with stand up, I think it's a little different for networking because when you perform, everywhere you go, there's about 5 or 6 comedians usually. And when you perform, everybody sees you perform. So your stand up kind of net does the networking. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like, and then you go off to the green room and you're just chatting. I feel like most of the successful comedians I know are friendly in the green room. You get to know them, but you don't need to you don't need to network because your show is right there. Everybody's seeing it, if that makes sense.
So you're saying, like, is if you can do the work, get out on the metaphorical or literal stage as much as possible, that
Mhm.
is the networking, that is the work.
Yes, and over the years, all of my opportunities that I can think of came from just somebody seeing me on stage and then having a having a friendly interaction of some sort at some point, and that was
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, showing up on stage, every comedian that's successful pretty much equates it to stage time, success being stage time plus writing time. So yeah,
What's your writing process like?
I think there's two types of comedians. There's the type that talks it out on stage and or just talks it out with their friends off stage, um, at dinner. And then there's the me types that like to go to a coffee shop and write in our little journal whatever has happened to us in the last week. And I'm a believer in free writing where you just write. Oh, and I do want to say if there's any, I do have something to say about free writing and journaling, Heather,
Please.
because to me, journaling and free writing comes so naturally, so easy, so fun. It's just dumping your brain thoughts out onto the page and it almost unclutters my brain. It feels like a relief.
Yeah.
But I've run into a lot of people over the years that kind of stare at me like I'm talking a different language. And they're like, yeah, I tried journaling and couldn't really think of what to say and da 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 da. And it hit me recently. The disconnect is that I'm journaling with no filter,
Yeah.
hoping no one ever reads this. It's just like gobbledygook, and nobody ever will read it. But then I'll go back through and I'll underline a couple things that are useful, maybe. Like every now and then I'll underline a couple things that were useful, and that turns into a potential bit. And I think the people that are struggling with journaling have the filter on as they're journaling. They're like, well, I want to make this sentence good because, I mean, maybe it'll get published someday. Maybe my journals will get in a book someday. It's like you're already messing up the whole concept of journaling. It's never going to get in a book. The only journal I want to read is like maybe my hero, whoever my hero is, maybe I'd want to read their journal. But even my hero, I don't even know that I'd be that interested in their journal. You know what I mean?
Who's your hero?
It's just for gobbledygook. I'm a fan of Matt Damon.
Oh, yeah, I knew that. But what you were saying about the journaling is that reminds me, have you read, uh, I think it's called The Creative Act, Julia Cameron, where she talks about automatic writing,
The Artist Way,
the artist's way?
where she talks about what'd you say?
Automatic writing.
Yes, the morning. I think it's the morning page. It's 3 pages a day.
That's
When
essentially what it is. It's like subconscious writing where because there's something inside of all of us that if we can kinda get it out, it's like and this is really gross, but if we can just, like, throw it up and just like, "Bleh," there's all it is, and then be able to sort through the shit and, like, the mess and be able to, like, find the gold from it. But our ego gets in the way where, I want to write this perfect thing or Joe to like what I said or whatever, so I'm not free to fully, like, let it all out, and I think that's what you're saying with the journaling practice, which is conceptually easy, but it's actually really hard.
Yeah, I think I've realized that the creative people that are putting out a lot of stuff are able to turn off the filter, the revising perfection filter for the rough drafting slash journaling free writing process where it doesn't matter if it's bad. In fact, maybe it helps to think of it as like this should be bad. And the people that are struggling with that creative process are just in what I've discovered recently is they've been trying to make it good
Yeah,
from the get-go. So
yeah,
almost one of my breakthroughs with writing fiction when I hit some blocks with fiction was, which I think comes back to stand up too, is I was like having so much trouble and I was like, well, your goal is just to finish this chapter. Doesn't matter how good it is. So just write it. You wrote anything when you were in eighth grade. You turned in paper after paper in eighth grade. And I never thought of the papers as being bad, but they were terrible if I read them now. I'm sure they were not that good. So I was like, well, just write this chapter like an eighth grader and get it done. And then I was like, oh, it was done in a few hours. And it was fine. So for me, I if I'm really struggling with a filter, I'll say to just write it like an 8th grader writing a paper.
I love that. What fiction are you writing?
I am, uh I am 60% finished with a second draft of um, a novel. My first novel, I finished a rough draft last year. I'm in the second draft. Now I'm in that revising filter process, which is a whole nother brain. Um, and it's about a guy in 2021 who spends all of his time in Central Park bird watching, avoiding other aspects of his life. He's got an annoying friend, and he's just kind of fully bird obsessed. And people are like, "So it's about you?" And I'm like, "Hold on, I'm writing it because I'm interested in learning more about birds." Which, oh, another fun thing I've learned. Oh, this was a big epiphany for me. Is they say write what you know, right?
Right.
No, don't do that because what I know is boring to me. I don't want to write what I know because I already know it. So, what really opened my eyes up, I think it was Dan Brown's masterclass. Could,
Mm.
could be wrong, but he said, write what you want to know. So then I get to research birds, which I want to do, and I get to have fun writing about birds. So I learn about birds. Now I know about birds, and I'm writing about birds. So I think that was a breakthrough to me because I kept finding it not that interesting to write about things that I already knew.
Let's take a little side road for a minute, and then we'll get back on the main road. Side road, I
Yeah,
was
your sincerity has inspired me, so I gotta pull it back, you know what I'm saying?
we haven't gotten started yet, my friend. Um, but I was wondering with you, I was like, is he interested in birds or is he interested in bird watchers?
Yeah, I think I started off around 2018, 2019, being around Central Park a little bit,
Right.
being interested in bird watchers, like, there's something interesting going on here, something silly, but also I would occasionally follow their gaze to an owl. You know, you kinda look at them when you're back before you're a birder, you're like, "Birders, isn't that silly?" And then you follow their gaze to an owl, and then you're just staring at an owl for 10 minutes, and you're like, that is a pretty good time I'm having." So, I would say around 2021, I became even more interested in birds. I went on a guided bird walk through Central Park during migration, and that's when my eyes opened to bird watching. It's when I realized there's different species flying through every 2 days, and you get to see these like herds. At first, I thought of it as like if you never got to see dog species, but all of a sudden, like a bunch of golden retrievers came through for a day, and then they headed north. And you're like, oh, I was been dying to see golden retrievers. And you get to scratch them on the ears and stuff. And then the next day you get a bunch of dachshunds, and you're like, I haven't seen a dachshund in a year. This is wonderful. Look at all these dachshunds. And so migration is kind of like that. You get to see these birds that you haven't seen in a year, and it's a good time.
And Joe, let me get into the heart of that real quick because here's where your girl struggles. I was literally just talking to my girlfriend about this morning. Is we were talking about how it feels as though in order to be ambitious and make advancements in your dream, your vision, what I would say is the calling on your life, that you have to go all in and be obsessive and, like David Goggins will be like, you got more in you and you need to not sleep and blah, 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 and like do the grind and all the bros
Oh
and
yeah.
stuff. But then
Yeah,
there's
there's
all
nothing more upsetting than that Arnold Schwarzenegger motivational speech about how you should just sleep 5 hours a night. I'm
his
like, this is
book.
the
I don't
worst.
agree with him, but his book was so good. His book made me like lose my mind. But on the flip
Yeah.
side to that, like I love, like, the mystic and the magic and, like, the kinda letting go of all of it and being able to go look at an effing bird, and I don't know you, but I would guess looking at what you've done, that you're an ambitious man, and to be able to do what you've done has taken a lot of work and a lot of sacrifice. But on a serious note, taking the time to go watch a freaking owl in Central Park with Betty down the side of the road, and you've never met Betty before. Like, what's your mindset with that of giving yourself freedom to like explore and be curious about the Blue Jays, which I know you hate, and look at that. Um, while you still have a really hot comedy career and you could be, like, emailing Mr. Doolittle. You know what I'm saying?
Um, am I emailing Mr. Doolittle about birds or comedy?
No, I'm saying you could be at your computer hustling,
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
you know what I'm saying? But you take the time to go do this other stuff and just wonder at creation, and I think that's really interesting about you.
Let me start by saying, first of all, birds, hilarious. They've been nothing but fuel on the fire of my comedy career.
Okay.
2, I came across some I probably got coming across too many inspirational messages lately, but there was this article, I think I read an article about the skier that had just broken her leg or something.
Like the 40-year-old lady?
I think so. So I'm gonna misquote it, but the moral of the story was she had built her own house over the past few years, and then she won some gold medal. And the moral was that the people that are the best at what they do, um, actually have something else, more than one thing going on. They're enjoying other things as well, and these other things are adding layers to this one thing, this other thing. So you're pulling strengths from other areas. My best Okay, here's my best example of this. Isaac Newton, you know him, you love him, right? He figured out the equation for gravity when he was about 60 years old. Famous for that. But he did calculus, figured out calculus when he was 19. From about age, well, for a decade, he disappeared and was really interested in turning uh, rocks into gold. And was convinced he just wanted money. He just was convinced he could make gold. And he spent 10 years being an alchemist, playing with chemistry, and total failure, no gold. And after that, but he had this newfound skill of being a master of chemistry now that he now applied to all of his other things to help land on the theory of gravity. And I guess what I'm saying is, comedy is adding some layer to my bird watching skills, and bird watching skills is adding some layer to my comedy. But more importantly, um, you just have to enjoy other areas of life, or you're gonna either A, become an uninteresting person who only does one thing, or B, you're gonna become burned out on only doing one thing. I would be my guess. So people that are passionate and obsessive, I think all of them have these other passions and interests to go along with this one thing that we're thinking of.
You're right. How do you make decisions when there's a lot of different choices? I've been thinking a lot about, you like kind of standing, like if you can imagine, like you're standing here and there's all these different paths and there's all these different choices. I think at the beginning of your career, it's just like, hey, any opportunity, anything that I can do, hot dog, let's go. But after a while, it's like your paths start emerging and there's all these different options. I'm curious how you make decisions at this point in your career.
Deciding on which things to say yes to.
Yeah, like, there's this southern girl in your DMs like, "Yo, get can you come on my podcast?" Just stuff like I'm not joking, but,
Yeah.
like, seriously, like, there's so many different options, and you could build your own brand and put out more content, or you could kinda go with the traditional route, or you could there's so many different ways, and what a gift that is now to live in 2026 where we have all these options, but I'm curious how, you know The small things, the small yeses, the small nos, all the ways to, like, intentional choices. How do you build your career from here?
Well, first things first, I said yes to this podcast because of the 10 grand you offered me, which is my minimum. And thank you for that. And the 5,000 deposit, direct wire. Um, I think that the best way to say, I would say for me saying, you're right. You do say, yeah, the more farther along you get, the more you all of a sudden your plate is too full if you keep saying yes, and all of a sudden you're running on fumes saying yes to everything. So at some point you got to figure out what to say yes to and what to say no to you to. And I would say recently I I think my goals have changed because I've had a comedy career now for 15 plus years. So I'm no longer uh just I'm no longer worried that that's going to go away. It's just there, you know. Um I mean, I took probably at least 7 months off in the quarantine and it was still just there. I thought I was done with I thought everybody was gonna forget about me and there was no more comedy gigs to get, and it was just like, oh, nothing had changed. So, you've established yourself, your career, and now I say yes to mostly things that are fun. It's either things that are fun and fulfilling and interesting,
Yeah.
or things that pay the most bills.
Truth. Yeah.
So you kind of I kind of like I've heard people say you do one for them and one for you with actors. I don't know if
Yeah.
that's true for actors. I'm not an actor, but you make one movie for you do one movie as Spider-Man, and then you do one indie flick that you wrote with your brother that you put out on Criterion Collection or whatever. So I don't do that at all. I don't know why I use that as an example. However, I do try to say yes to things that are fun and interesting and try to say no to everything else unless it's a thing that's paying so much that I'm like, that'll pay a lot of my bills and it'll pay for me to do fun things too.
Let's say tomorrow everything was wiped away and no one knew your name, you had no connections, and you were starting all over again. What would you spend the next month focused on?
We're in an apocalypse scenario. Is there electricity or do we have a power grid?
There's electricity, it's like you have everything but humanity's minds have been wiped, and so you're starting all over again, and people are like, "Who?"
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty used to people saying, who's that?" So, but yeah, if your career is at 0, wow, what would I do? Career at 0, nobody knows who I am, no references. Yeah, well, first of all, it's kinda relieving. Well, there's no expectations, right? There's no expectations of like, "Oh, Joe's gonna talk about birds and be clean," and if he's not clean and doesn't talk about birds, I mean, we're gonna put this on the comment cards, you know? So, I would say, first of all, there's the complete creative freedom of, you go back to the beginning and you can try anything. Um, but what would I do differently? I would say I might I might I think I would either move to the countryside and get a big, like, bathtub. I like bathtubs, a lot of bird feeders, jacuzzi, um, dog. I would start off with the things that make you, You feel good. I wouldn't start off with the career. And then you write your fresh hour of material about this new life you've built, living happily ever after. And and then you got your new hour about you're this happy guy in the woods. And everybody's like, I want to hear about this happy guy in the woods. Who's this guy? And then maybe change your name to something a little more memorable, like a little more memorable. And then everybody's not like, are you Jewish? And you'd be like, I'm not Jewish, but I like Jewish people. Maybe change your name, you know, it worked for Bob Dylan. He changed his name from Zimmerman to Dylan. Maybe go uh, Joseph Joseph Passion. I feel like would be memorable. Um, so yeah, you get to be whatever name you want. You get to start over whatever life you want.
Rebuilding your career. You know what I'm saying? Like, what's the most important part to rebuilding your career? Or would you want to? Because I'm hearing that you just wanna go in a hot tub with your dog.
Yeah. Okay. You were asking how to rebuild my career. It's for somebody else starting out. Got it. I heard the question I wanted to hear. You're asking for advice for somebody starting out.
I know you're like, "I would go to a hot tub and I'd have a dog, and there'd be I'd change my name."
Advice for somebody starting out. I want to be. I would just want to say there's such different advice for somebody that's done zero. There's somebody new that's done it 0 times, and somebody that's new that's done it for 2 years. So are we talking
Someone for 2 years,
somebody's done it for
not
two
beginner.
years? Got it.
Yeah, for
Not
sure.
brand new. So they have a little bit of real experience. I would move to New York City or LA, or make sure you're in, or Chicago, even Chicago. Make sure you're in a big city and you're surrounded by other people in your field that are
Mm,
other people that you respect in your field. Be around as many people as you respect that could inspire you and you can learn from. And then just show up, and in my case, get on stage. Every stage you can get on. Every stage you can get on. A lot of New York comics just do a lot of unpaid stage time, and three, four, sometimes 3, 4 shows a week, spots around the city, and the amount of the amount of success people get from 2, 3, 4 years later from those people that they met doing those bar shows is pretty incredible. I mean, bar shows in New York and LA 5 years from now, it's a who's who of comedians doing theaters and arenas. And then, of course, there's also comedians that have disappeared and gone into advertising or accounting. But every 5 years, you're like, I was just did a bar show and we're friends. I'm friends with that guy that's hosting his own TV show now. 5 years later.
there's a book by Stephen Pressfield, I'm not sure if you're familiar with his work, he wrote The War of Art, but he also wrote this book called Put Your Ass Where Your Heart Wants to Be, and that's the whole premise of this book. It's like if you have a dream, you have to literally put your ass where the people are who are doing that, because like you said, it's just a matter of time and persistence to be able to do that.
I emailed Stephen Pressfield a couple of years ago to tell him how much his book. I think that was one of my first breakthroughs starting out 1 year into comedy, reading that book. I was like, oh, resistance. So you just got to sit down. You just got to sit down and defeat resistance. I can understand that concept. That's part of sitting down to write is he creates this enemy, which is creative resistance. And the more you want to do something, the stronger the resistance gets. The more meaningful something is, the stronger the enemy gets. Um, and that really helped me sit down and do the work. And so a couple of years ago, I wrote him and was like, "Hey, your book means a lot to me. I've read it like 7 times." And he wrote right back, Sweet man. Responds to his emails, which I'm not good at responding to emails, so props to Stephen Pressfield. Um, love that book, War of Art, and, all that's to say is I've 100% that's how I've learned to go to coffee shops most mornings and sit down and write.
Is there coffee in that cup or what's in there? Tea or coffee?
It's after 12, so I switched to tea.
I really envy people who drink tea because I drink an embarrassing amount of coffee. But like when people say that they drink tea, I feel like that's a healthier, more balanced, more sophisticated choice than
Agreed.
downing more Joe. So I'm very proud of you for that.
They're also known for, packing the most microplastics possible into every tea bag, so
There's that. There's that.
could go either way. I'm glad you brought up Stephen Pressfield because I'm a huge fan.
I love that man. I love him. I think what I appreciate about him is like there is a very tactical piece to getting better, but there's also I'm a very spiritual gal. I don't know if you picked that up or not, but there's also a very emotional, spiritual plane that we're working on where there's stuff that we have to fight internally just as much as we have to fight physically. And so, yeah, I need to send the emails and get in front of the people and do all that. But my biggest battle is with Heather, uh, not with the outside world. And I think that's what that he points to. I know we're getting close at time here. I asked my hairdresser
Uh-huh.
what I should ask you. I
Oh,
was
okay.
I got my hair done last week
Mhm.
and I said, "Hey, I'm interviewing this dude and he's a touring comedian. He's been all over and he's really, really funny. And I'm curious." And I showed her your Instagram and all of that. Her name's Kaylee. Shout out to Kaylee. I said, "What is something that you would want to know about him?" And this was her question to you. She said,
This is Kaylee or Haley?
Kaylee with a K.
Kaylee.
Yeah. She said, "What, sorry, what made you so funny? Was it trauma?"
Kaylee, thanks for asking this question. I'm gonna pass it back to Heather to answer this one. Um, so Kaylee, is she hopefully you're gonna hook up Heather with some discounts here. I mean, getting the questions on the air. Uh, I would say, first of all, my parents did split when I was 2, so I'm still working through that. Still working I talk to them every day about it, both of them. Um, and I would say a lot of comedians I know definitely have developed their comedy out of a coping mechanism at an early stage in life to some sort of potential trauma because to a positive spin on that, they found that the people best at coping with depression are the people that can, and getting themselves out of depression are the people that can make jokes about it. And the people that stay in depression have a tough time finding the humor in it. So it is one way to effectively deal with difficult times. Um, but I would say there's another percentage of comedians that just had pretty healthy childhoods, pretty happy, silly people that just like being silly with their friends. And I would say it's about 70% trauma, 30% silly people out there would be my guess. And I would say I don't think I've had I don't think any traumas led to my comedy, but it definitely some times of feeling down in the dumps uh led to making an increased amount of jokes. So I would say it is an effective way to connect with people and to pull yourself out of a slump, I would say.
I agree, and obviously I'm not a comedian, but just, like, as a communicator, anybody who has, like, a bent towards building something, it's almost like a competitive edge to have, like, something that in your life that just makes you a little bit gritty, and anything that I've gone through in my life, ironically grateful for, and it's like very glad I went through that stuff because it made me, want more and have a little bit more grit to me. So it's actually a competitive advantage, I think.
Make sure to ask Kaylee. Let her know that I want to know if trauma is what got her hairstyling skills. Same thing goes both ways, you know?
Amen. Amen. Amen to that. Before our very last question, I think I told you before, your comedy special, I was literally running down the road laughing out loud, like, "Ha, ha, ha," like, in my neighborhood laughing, and I was texting it to my dad, I was texting it to my sister, I was texting it to my best friend, like, "This is so funny, it's so good." I'll link that down in the show notes, but is there anything else that you would like to direct our listeners to before my very last overly deep question?
Um, well, yeah, thank you. The comedy special on YouTube is called Cult Classic. I'd be honored if you gave it a watch. It was directed by Nate Bargatze, which was a very nice thing for me. He was very helpful for me. Um, and other than that, I would say I'm the most active, pretty much almost only active, at least right now on Instagram. I enjoy Instagram. I'll post some bird photos, some bird videos, some stand-up clips, maybe a personal video. So I'm at Joe Zimmerman on Instagram. But that's pretty much it right now. I would be honored if you found me on YouTube or Instagram.
That'll be linked up in the show notes. My favorite part, so I go to bed, I literally go to bed at 8:30 every night, and I get up at, like, 4:30, but, like, the whole melatonin thing and the old person mindset, which just really spoke to me. So,
Oh,
I
and
loved it so
and
much.
Instagram is where I found you. I loved your videos. They were very interesting and well done and inspiring to me.
Thank you,
So
thank
I'm
you.
I'm an active consumer on Instagram as
You are.
well.
You are, you are. Very last question. What is something in your life that you're questioning right now? And it can be something related to what we've talked about. It could be something completely different. It could be deep. It could be not deep. But what's something this past week, maybe, that you have really been wrestling with that you don't have the answer to?
Um, Past week has been 10 out of 10 wins for old Zims. So I'd have to go back. I've had an incredible week. Thank you for
I'm
asking.
so glad. I'm so
People
glad.
brought me flowers in Wisconsin. I got snowed into Chicago and flew to Nashville, and then a buddy just offered me a free ride to New York back on his private jet. So
Whoa.
I'm feeling lucky girl syndrome the last week.
Nice.
But I don't want to brag about any flowers or private jets, so I won't bring that up on the podcast. Don't mention that on the podcast. That's just for off pod. Little shop talk. Little shop talk. Um, but I would say for real deal questioning the last year, two things. One is I've been in New York for quite a while now and would love to live somewhere out more in nature. So it's like, do you live in nature where there's no other comedians or comedy shows, but you get nature, or do you stay in New York until into your old age and keep being surrounded by crowds and people? So there's that typical question that a lot of people struggle with. And then yeah, the other one is just I love writing fiction. I've been loving writing this novel for part-time, I would say for 2 years now because full-time is stand-up. So it's just how much do you juggle? How much do you put into fiction um, that it doesn't take away from stand-up, and how much you put into stand-up that it doesn't take away from fiction? So I would say those are the two real Jay-Z questions the last year. Jay-Z, the comedian.
I thought you meant JC, Jesus Christ.
Yep. Um, uh, you know, uh, our guy, I, I, our guy, the original Jewish man. As a non-Jewish person, I can say that.
Joe Zimmerman, thank you for your
But
time.
you wait, you're gonna know. You're supposed to give me answers. Jeez, what the heck? You're supposed to give me answers to my questions. What? I was just supposed to put those questions out there. No, you have the answers. You
Here's my
have the.
answer. I genuinely think you should, right above New York is Canada, which is so beautiful and so not American, and they have Tim Hortons coffee, and I just love Canadians because 'cause they're like, "Ee." So you can go over there and then pop up into New York, and then the other thing is I would say go all in on your novel
Okay. This
because you
is
could be the next Harry Potter, but author man. I
yeah,
forgot her name.
JK. Yeah. Just kidding. Just kidding, Rowling.
Never read the book.
Do you think I? I don't. Okay. Yeah. I like that my bird novel set in 2021 Central Park could be the next Harry Potter series. I like that that's a possibility.
I'm really big into, like, let's follow our dreams and abandon, like, jump off the ship and let's
Yeah.
go. So, like, when you said you were writing fiction, I'm like, "Hell yeah."
I
Like,
mean,
I know you, like, touch success with comedy, but who knows what that novel could be.
yeah. I mean, you're right. Both this and Harry Potter have more than one owl involved. I'll say that much. So I'm on the right path.